The VHS tapes for kids belonged on the bottom shelf of the TV cabinet, the one without the glass, because they were mine. Each an odd collage of free trial cable and after-school specials recorded from the networks. My family still has them. A reminder of the days when we had less, and my sister Emily and I sat side by side for hours, watching a parade of bold distractions. My Little Pony the movie, My Little Pony Rescue at Midnight Castle, Mary Poppins with the 1-800 number for subscribing to the Disney Channel scrolling underneath. Also, an hour-long documentary on dinosaurs called Dinosaur! Full of long, obsolete facts about longer, obsolete creatures, cut together with stop-motion scenes of Mesozoic monsters gruesomely eating the fuck out of each other. I remember that one especially well because it was so terrifying. Though I was afraid. I didn't wander through our quiet house to find my mother, though I'm sure I would have rather spent the afternoon with her than watching for the millionth time the sound-distorted Annie we had bootlegged, run through with commercials and missing the first song, Maybe, which remains my favorite. Television was the doorstep that my parents left me on with promises of their return, while they were living out the last days of their secret lives. It watched over me, it told me stories, it bathed me in its multicolored light. It gets better by halves. One day when you drove to pick your youngest up from school, he was missing his left ear. I left it in my desk. He seemed embarrassed as he pulled his hat over the blank stretch of skin, staring straight ahead. Can we go to Taco Bell? A week went by, and then one of his thumbs was gone. He rolled his sleeve down over his fist. I forgot it in my locker, I'll get it tomorrow. But instead, the next day all his hair was shaved off. Then one of his feet went missing, then an arm up to the elbow. It wasn't until he climbed into the car without his eyes that he began to worry. You shook him by the shoulders, asking, "Who did this to you? I didn't see," he said, feeling for the sunglasses tucked in his pocket. When finally there wasn't enough of him to send to school, you poured the last pieces of him into a jar and kept it by your bed. After dinner, you lie down, turn off your reading lamp. You unscrew the lid and he slides out, 2 fingers running through your hair, a nose that sweetly nestles in between your breasts. It is, of course, much easier to love these sweet parts, easier to understand a boy who never cries or asks for much of anything. The neighbor boy. Zach Morris is shirtless in the family room. I stare at his bare chest on television, light brown nipples shiny underneath a fake studio sun, my briefs tighter than a Gordian knot. My mom is upstairs sleeping, and my dad is on another business trip, and so I am alone watching the bottle blonde actor on screen. He looks just like the neighbor boy whose name is Nick. Once, I overheard my mom say on the phone that a year or so before we moved to town, a man had grabbed Nick in the old woods near our house and thrown a garbage bag over his head. The man was trying to take Nick somewhere, but Nick fought him hard and he escaped, and then the man was caught and went to jail, but only for a little while. Nick is older than me, and he only came over one time. He knocked and rang the doorbell while I stared at him through the front window, like I'm staring at the television now. I wanted to see the boy a man had tried to capture. I wanted to see the boy a man had tried to take away to someplace quiet, someplace he could touch his freckled back. I wanted to know if Nick was still afraid to play outside, to walk in the old woods. I wanted to know if he thought the man might come back someday, if he might come for me, and if he took me to his house, would there be television there? I wanted Nick to tell me what it's like to know somebody wants you, why he fought so hard to get away. Remnants Decay sequence. When Brett got sent to military school, the story went that he had gotten drunk and caught while swimming in a public pool at night without his clothes. The rumor clung to him. Suburban skate punk, black no fear shirt, airwalk sneakers, air guitar, 14 and gentle Brett, before he disappeared. I saw him once the summer after, lean in army cut-off shorts. He kept the hood of his black sweatshirt up to hide his buzz cut. He had beautiful hair. He looked good, but sounded wrong. I asked him how he was. I'm stronger now. They make you work outside a lot. You're too soft. You would not survive. We sat down on the curb and waited for our parents, watching the last colors drain above the strip mall parking lot before his dad pulled up. In movies, there's a stained white shirt that all abusive fathers wear. It reeks of Budweiser and cigarettes they smoke while sitting in their ugly chairs and glowering in front of TV sets. Brett's father wore a clean shirt, kept his lawn pristine. He was a tidy carnivore who only watched TV and drank beer on the game days, and who voted for the war because he'd never see it, and who sent his son out of his sight to be broken. What happened to my friend? A video obscured by tracking lines and hissing sound. What happens to all boys? Where do they go? Dissolving into snowbound static, drowned out signals, the recorded over men that they become, like shattered monitors and scrambled footage of their fathers' bent antennas, indecipherable blur of voices, bodies taking shape, the tease of naked limb, the humid night, a slurred confession in the back of a police car, please don't call my dad, and the water, its surface glowing like a blue TV screen, distant sirens, flash of memory. Fair. Suddenly you're in your hometown, standing at the gates of the fall carnival. This is strange. You've never been to the carnival. You didn't want to go alone. Around your head, a neon halo made of noise, made of laughter, music from the carousel, the screams of roller coaster riders. You hand over the ticket that you find in your back pocket to the old woman who stands beside the turnstile. You walk inside, and right away, you see him standing in a group of boys. The one you've wanted most your whole life. Not the one you settled for in times of famine, or the one whose pity was a thin sheet on the longest night, no. Before you was the boy whose sweat-ring jersey burned a hole into your stomach. The boy whose skin stretched like a banner for your eyes to quote with promises of heed. He sees you. You try to look away. Too late. He says something that you can't hear to his friends, then walks away from them, walks up to you. I'm sorry, he says, kicking at the ground. I'm sorry about everything that's happened. He reaches out and takes your hand. Walk with me. Together you glide past the flawless sheen of candy apples, past a man who's spinning sugar into clouds of brilliant color, past the ring toss games, the water rifle races, past the giant mallet with its towering bell, past the lines of fluffy sheep just groomed, and little girls who pose for photographs with doughy piglets that have won first prize. The air, greasy with salt and with popcorn, and funnel cake and cornbread and barbecue, and still he stands so close to you that you can taste his breath. It's sweet and cold, like fresh cream from the icebox, and the corner store cologne he always wore is tickling your nose, and nobody is staring at you. No one even notices his arm around your shoulder or his lips pressed soft against your temple. You wait in line to ride the Ferris wheel up to the top. When it's your turn, you climb into a basket and he pulls you close to wrap you in his jacket. The night falls as you rise. The sky is wet with fog, and in the air, the distant smoke of autumn campfires, and you can smell them, warm and dry, snapping with light. And whatever it was they found face down and full of pills, whatever husk of suffering they gathered to be dressed and laid out peaceful in a box, it wasn't you. That wasn't you. Prehistoric faggots. They do their best to burn away our history, so I like to imagine us before discovery of fire. Nothing yet to purify the wicked or to warm the tongues of those who muttered the first stories about hell. Who were we then, before the crude tools we invented to be turned upon our wrists? Who before the roving rope to sling about our filthy necks? Long before disease we laced fearlessly within the fallow ground of one another, and we wondered after children that would never come. Our tribe sprung forth from strange men gathered like a pride of lions, lunging from the edges of a tall grass seed with sharpened sticks, returning from the hunt with arms embracing, rending meat by hand to feed the weak. By night we pulled each other close and prayed to gods that looked and loved as we did, seeking shelter in the deep caves of each other's body, whispering the first names for beloved in each other's ears, as always, in the dark. I have maybe 1, 2 more. What do you think? Cookout, 1988. The cousins scatter on the lawn, play shooting unseen dinosaurs with plastic lasers, darting around our parents, our grandpa cooking burgers on the grill. When Grandma finally joins us on the patio for dinner, the wig she wears is waxy red like a new apple, done up in a glossy bouffant. I can't stop looking at it, and I can't understand why my family tries to look away, why they're pretending there's nothing new to get used to. My cousins and I mob her like reporters, shouting rapid-fire questions over one another. Grandma, did you get to pick the color? How many kinds were there to choose from? Do you get to have new hair all the time? Are you really bald now? Take off your hair, Grandma. Yeah, take off your hair. You don't really want to see your grandma bald, do you? She says. Yes, we say. We do. We do. Show us. Show us. What we really want, I think, is for her to tear the wig off and to chase us all away. We want her to tear away the strange quiet that's been hanging over everyone since Cousin James died, or since she came back from the doctor, the quiet that's been covering up something that's begun to itch. But instead she blushes, tells us all to run along. The wig stays on her head. Grandma wears it everywhere. She says she wouldn't be seen dead without it. She won't be. This will be the last one. Phantasms. When my cousin James was 10 years old, he hanged himself by accident. An older boy had taught some neighborhood kids how to tie a fake noose with a rope swing James didn't tie his right. Everybody watching him thought that he was faking, even his own brother. The week before, my mother had a nightmare. She was pushing through a crowd of people gathered at the scene of an accident. On the pavement was my sister, red snakes drooling from her head, her blonde hair matted thick with life, escaping. Pieces of her boyfriend's motorcycle lined her silhouette like chalk. It was so real, Mom said. I woke up and her perfume was still hanging in the air. When James died, my Aunt Mary Beth used to wake up in the night and catch the scent of him too. She reached out through the darkness of her bedroom, finding nothing. When a child dies, the family still lives, but doesn't. Parts of them go still and cold, like Jimmy in the wooden box, a pale and freckled doll still in the package. I'd like to think the son my father wanted visits him in dreams, that he survives. A blue-skinned boy who drapes himself across him while he sleeps, weightless as a veil, softly glowing, steadily as a lamp. Good.
Well, thank you very much, Sean. That was amazing.
Thank you.
This is Sean Molroy. He is our current writer-resident at the Kerouac House here in Orlando, and my name is Jana Benj. I'm the president of the Kerouac Project in Orlando, and we welcome to this interview. So, Sean, that was quite something.
Thanks.
You had on a roller coaster. Can you tell us, for starters, a little bit about how you heard about the project? And
Yeah, in my MFA program, they've been really proactive about giving us guidance to different grants and things that we could look at and apply to. I also had a couple of friends applying, talk about applying publicly, and I thought, okay, I'll apply for this too. I was already interested because I've always been a big fan of the Beats, always, since I was very young. And so I really think it was kind of a combination of, there was no way that there being a residency involving Kerouac was going to slip through my mind, and then it came up a couple of times after that. And so I thought, okay, I'll apply. And I had put together a pretty specific set of poems that felt like a very good representation of what I was working on at the time, and so it wasn't really hard. It was just, say something about the Beats and what they mean to you, which, easy, and then, send some poems that you feel confident about, and I had this polished sample, and so,
the rest is history.
Yeah.
So when you came to the house, is it what you expected as the residency? Did you have any preconceived ideas, or?
I'm one of those people who's really compartmentalized. So I knew I was going to be here,
Good.
but I hadn't put any thought into it.
Mm-hmm.
I really just thought, okay, I want to make sure that I don't have the wrong clothes for Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to have a list of things that I want to do, but it didn't really hit home that I was going to be living in this different space until I came in through the door, and then it was like, oh, this is a place. And it's also because the furnishings are, kind of the era, and because just sort of that sense of the house and the occasional people coming through and the things under glass. It does have a little bit of a museum feel, but obviously not cold like that. But it definitely is it takes a moment to feel like, okay, this space is my space.
Right.
This is a space that I'm going to sit in and do creative work. And creating right now has been really difficult for me. And focusing is always really difficult for me. So having just many, many days in a row of a lot of quiet and time to think and process and, just take my time with certain things that were not necessarily thrilling, but were time-consuming, was so useful and so great. But in terms of expectations, I guess I didn't think to take any happening. It's kind of what happened. It sort of narrowed that way. It's sort of like, oh yes, I am living here. It was so strange.
Right.
Yeah. But it's been lovely.
That's great. And have you been out in the community much? Or?
I have. I wouldn't say over the top, but I had two shows in the community that I wanted to prepare for and do work for, and one of them was you had to write something about current events, so I literally waited until the day of the event to write it, which was exciting, and I got to write a 15-minute long poem, and that was a really exciting reading. I think it's called Loose Lips.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a reading at the Slam at Milk Bar. And that was, another time I went out. I've also had a chance to make some friends and, go to some of the theme parks and kind of absorb the Orlando experience, which is pretty exciting too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
had you been to Orlando before?
No. Well, yes, once with my Christian touring choir when I was 14. And the only thing we stopped to do in Orlando other than we sang in a church on our tour bus, we also went to SeaWorld because they thought it would be sinful to, go to a beach or go to, one of the other more worldly theme parks. And so SeaWorld is an opportunity to witness God's creatures. And so I did go to SeaWorld.
You need to write a poem about that. Have you ever written a poem about that?
I haven't, but yeah, it's probably time. I have some photos too. It was an interesting day. Yeah. I haven't really touched a lot on that aspect of my life because it's a very tricky subject for me because it's inherently hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who's like very politically gay and very like openly sexual, I think online and like in my work, and then also, just in general, sort of a cynic. Like it's difficult to express how seriously I took Christianity when I was like a teenager, and how embittered I was by sort of having to leave the church because it was a southern scene and I was suddenly very gay. But I think it's one of those things where I want it to be funny and I want it to also be serious, and so it's a balancing act. And I just haven't been brave enough, I think, to face that work yet, but it's on the list. Everything's on the list,
I'm sure.
It's a long list.
I'm sure this will show up somewhere at some stage.
Yeah, probably.
So is there anything about Orlando that you didn't put a lot of forethought into, but anything that you found interesting or unexpected?
The weather.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's odd, but I guess I was expecting it to be a lot warmer.
Okay.
And it was January, so what was I thinking? But I thought there'd be more storms, and I thought it would be more humid and more warm, and in fact it was pretty much cardigan weather almost the whole time I was here, which is my favorite, and only a couple of rainstorms, and I guess I expected to maybe not leave the house as much as I did. And maybe I thought I would be able to sort of rush through some of the things that I wanted to do on that list. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the city kind of changing my preconceived notion of what it was like, I think it was both more spread out than I thought, and also smaller. Insofar as that, yes, like it was very huge, and the theme parks are huge, but there's 8 theme parks mostly, or 9, right? And they take up a lot of space, but there they are. And then there's downtown; it's very small, and there's a lot of suburbs, and they're not huge either. So I think that's kind of,
Right, up this end of town in College Park, we're a long way from the theme parks. We seldom see a tourist, which, for some of us is fine. Yeah. So we're not overrun with people in Mickey Mouse hats running by.
Although I definitely had a few people come to visit, and that was fun. Yeah. That was cool.
So what kind of a routine did you develop in the house?
Oh gosh, okay, so I would wake up kind of with I want to say with the sun, but when the sun came in through the window. So 8:30,
90-degree angle.
Right. And so I would wake up relatively early, and then, I'd do my coffee, and some breakfast, like always. And then I'd sit down at my desk and kind of work on what was pressing me. I spent some time doing some reading early in the day. I was doing research for one of the workshops that I taught while I was here, and that was a lot of reading. And so that took up some time. But really, most of my time was spent sitting at the desk, either watching a little, downloaded episode of some silly show, to kind of occupy me while I'm drinking coffee or, eating an omelet, and then just editing and editing and editing. Most of what I've spent my time on as a writer over the last year and a half has been editing and research. And so I found myself doing a lot of that every day. And then, in the evening, I might go out. I started dating someone while I was here, so we went to a lot of movies in the evening, which was nice. And then, rinse and repeat.
So, finally, can you give us an idea of what motivates you to write your poetry?
Oh gosh. I think that motivation changes a lot. I think there have been times in my life when I had a lot to prove to myself or to others about what I could do as a writer. I sort of make fun of myself because I do a lot of form and I do a lot of complex things, and so I'm like, oh, I'm a stunt poet. I can do, a loop-to-loop. I can read sonnets that don't sound like sonnets, But other than the showmanship aspect of that, right? There, I think is, I've always written, even when I was a very, very small child, maybe 4, I think. I made a Xeroxed, storybook out of pictures from a cat catalog that was about a cat being kidnapped by aliens.
Whoa!
It was gripping, yeah. The cat escaped.
Happy ending.
Right. But I will say that I think there's always a part of me that wants to do something with my life, if that makes sense. And this is something that I think I'm good at, and that I enjoy. And so even when I'm feeling too possessed by self-doubt or, feelings essentially to write new material, I still find myself wanting to return to the work because it really is my work. It's something that I've really kind of come to own. There are other arts that I used to do more, and they've kind of fallen by the wayside, and writing poetry especially has really been the thing for me for a minute. So I guess it's more just I would have to have a reason not to, more than a reason to at this point. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. So where do you go from here?
That is a good question. I'm going to AWP. I'm going to AWP briefly and tangentially. And then after that, I'm going to Boston briefly to see some friends and check in with my, team of specialists. Because I have really good healthcare from Massachusetts, but I don't. I travel a lot, so I don't really live anywhere. And then after that, I'm sort of deciding whether or not I'm going to go to South America for a while and try to live cheaply and do more writing, or go to Los Angeles and try to start doing some acting work and some screenwriting work out there. That's eventually where I want to go for an extended period of time. It's just a question of whether or not I want to go somewhere else first, or any number of other places else. I like to throw myself the world. I travel a lot, and I intend to travel a lot more, and so it's anyone's guess from it.
Okay.
How
can we follow you?
I have a website which is currently under construction by myself, and that's thevanishingman.com. I am compulsively on Twitter, which is the Vanisher. Vanish with a V, or with a V, not with a B. That's probably the easiest way.
Well, we'll be interested to see where you end up. Well, you won't end up with where you go from here.
I'm interested to see too.
And we hope you come back and visit us, and you've been a fantastic resident.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate the time that you spent with us.
Yeah, I appreciate having the opportunity. It's been wonderful, so thank you.
Thank you.